Behind us is Victoria Harbor in Hong Kong. Victoria Harbor is the body of water that made Hong Kong so attractive to early British traders. This is where China was first open to foreign traders. Years we talked about how China was introspective, closed off to the outside world. It wasn't until the first Opium War that the British won Hong Kong as a concession. The problem was the British had grown addicted to one major product in China. It's tea. But the Chinese government would only let them pay for it in silver. They didn't have enough silver to pay for it. So the British plan, again, was to sell opium to the Chinese and use the silver in return to buy tea and ship that home to England. But the Chinese didn't like that because, well, it wreaked havoc on Chinese society, but also the Chinese government was already selling opium to the people, and they liked having a monopoly on that. So they wouldn't allow any foreign traders into Chinese markets. Eventually, when the Chinese confiscated some British opium, that was all the pretext that the British needed to go to war. Eventually, the first Opium War ended in the signing of the Treaty of Nanking in 1842. And that gave Britain control of Hong Kong Island that we're now standing on. Later Opium Wars gave them control of the Kowloon Peninsula across the bay. And it's this harbor that they were after, really. But those Opium Wars also opened the rest of China, ports like Shanghai, and allowed other foreigners to start trading. And that really signaled the start of what China considers its 100 years of humiliation, where foreigners, first Europeans and later the Japanese, took control. The end, what a lot of Chinese consider the end, at least, of that 100 years of humiliation, was finally when Hong Kong here was returned to Chinese control in 1997. Alright, we're back on Victoria Harbor here, and you can see the light shows going on behind me. The big thing this year is the 20th anniversary that you see here. That means it must be 2017. 20th anniversary of the return of Hong Kong from the British to the Chinese in 1997. Hong Kong's got this unique history in that the British first wrestled it from the Chinese in the first Opium War. And it's Hong Kong that really, in the Treaty of Nanking, along with other ports along the east coast of China, that forced China to open up its ports and trade with the rest of the world for the first time. And so, since 1997, it belonged to the Chinese. They agreed to, for 50 years, rule Hong Kong under the one-party, two-system. The British agreed to return Hong Kong to Chinese control, but there were stipulations that for 50 years, Hong Kong was supposed to be able to operate under its same political and economic situation as it was for the 100 years previously under British policy. However, almost immediately, China started backsliding on this promise, and we've seen democracy slowly slipping away. China claims, well, we still allow voting, but just like the rest of China, there's a catch. Only the candidates that the Chinese government choose are allowed on the ballot. And so we've seen recently some big protests throughout Hong Kong, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future as China whittles away at more and more of that political and economic freedom. As Hong Kong and Macau continue to operate under what China calls its one country, two systems concept.